Honda has now confirmed that the new Honda Prelude will in fact be sold right here in the United States. It's also coming to Europe, and looking at the design, I think the design is fine. It looks pretty cool. You can sort of see the connection to older generations of the Prelude, but then when we talk about the powertrain, this is something that I don't understand why companies does this, but we're going to talk more about the powertrain in a minute, and also the design. Jump into Photoshop, have a look at that. But it's a cool car, but I don't think I'm too excited about this, to be honest, just because of what we're going to have under the hood. So before we jump in and have a look at this front, side, and rear view of the new Prelude, let's have a look at this article with the details about the powertrain for the new Honda Prelude 2025 model year. I do believe this is. I'm going to link this Car Scoop's article down in the description. So will Honda's new Prelude be the best or worst of both worlds? That it remains to be seen what they're gonna do here. So Honda Prelude returns in 2025, bringing hybrid and two-door styling back to the table. It promises a balance of modern design, advanced technology, and efficient hybrid performance, but it could also disappoint, as history has shown that this combination doesn't always hit the mark. The all-new Honda Prelude is less than a full year away from production, and looking at this car, it definitely looks like it's ready to be, pumped into production right now. I don't see anything that is too conceptualized about this design, and it's coming to market to both the US and Europe. It should end up being the most fuel efficient generation. And that is the thing. Like, who cares about fuel efficiency when it's a sports car? Yes, I do know that there are regulations and stuff that car companies these days need to abide by, but still, this is a small little two-door sports car. And if you're adding hybrid powertrain to this, it's also going to add weight, so that is going to affect the fuel economy. So why not just remove the hybrid powertrain and just put a normal four-cylinder in there, 250 horsepower manual transmission? I want to have rear-wheel drive in this, even though I do know the previous generations were front-wheel drive. But looking at this, the proportions looks almost like a mid-engine sports car. But I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, this powertrain in this specific car. So to make everything even sweeter, it'll do so with two doors, which is rare these days. Thankfully, Honda didn't do a Mitsubishi and just brought the Eclipse back as a crossover SUV with the Eclipse Cross. One of the, how do I put this nicely, least attractive SUVs on the market today, and it also bears the Eclipse name. That to me is something that Mitsubishi should never have done in the first place. You could have built an SUV, but don't call it an Eclipse. So thankfully here we still have, a two-door sports coupe at least. So there's one gas hybrid performance car that at least some enthusiasts seems to love, and that would be the old BMW i8, which if that came out today would still be, it would still feel right in 2025 to bring out the BMW i8. That just shows how far ahead of its time that car was. It had a smaller battery, only 7.1 kilowatt hours, and the power was offered to the rear wheels only. And this new Prelude will most likely come with front-wheel drive as standard. And I really hope that they're going to put an all-wheel drive version for this, because front-wheel drive, as we know, when it comes to sports car, you know what that means. Usually, unless it's a very fun, funky hatchback, it's going to understeer like crazy when you take this into corners. So we don't have any technical details yet, so we could very well have an all-wheel drive option, which I do hope they will figure out. But the thing about this new car, it will likely weigh far more than the last Prelude did, which is not good when it comes to the driving dynamics. And the added weight in combination with the front-wheel drive setup, that just screams understeer to me. We're gonna have to wait and see. Maybe the engineers do something crazy and figure this out. So Honda will include two technologies that might end up in the being a real bummer for enthusiasts. First of all, you have the drivetrain involves an HEV, self-charging hybrid system. So instead of having a big battery in electric motors, the Prelude uses an Atkins cycle gas engine to charge electric motors, which can drive the wheels directly. So when you go in low speeds, you're pretty much full EV mode, and at higher speeds, a clutch engages, letting the engine drive the wheels directly for better efficiency. And on top of that, it's introducing a brand new S Plus shift feature. And this is also something that doesn't feel right to have in this car. So based on what Honda tells us, it's going to simulate gear shifts, play exhaust noises in the cabin, and show what they say responsive meters that engage the senses. And this to me sounds like something that I would not want to have in a Prelude resurrected car. I want to have just as simple technology as the regulation allows today, with a 6-speed manual transmission and none of this fake exhaust stuff that we have, not front wheel drive. I mean, front wheel drive is sort of, I can maybe live with that if they can figure out how to make it engaging to drive and not understeer too much. But having all these S Plus shift stuff that we have here, it just sounds like, why are we complicating things like this so much when the exterior design looks to be a very simplistic and purist, sports car to me? So while it sounds a bit like a CVT pretending to be a racing gearbox, Honda's hybrid powertrain actually uses a direct drive system with fixed gear ratio. So I'm not sure what that means. If it is a CVT with pretended gear shifts, or if it's a proper gearbox here. So here we have all the hybrids from the past of Honda, the CRZ, for example. You also have the NSX, which is a beautiful piece of engineering, and also the Honda Insight, which definitely looks, like a hybrid. So hybrids are designed to combine the best of both gas and electric powered vehicles. However, they often end up as a compromise, and this is acceptable for sedans and SUVs, where space and fuel economy rank higher in buyers' priorities and driver engagement. However, when you have a beautiful design like this, a sports car, you don't really care about stuff like that. All you want is a fun car to drive that's beautiful to look at. And, it doesn't have to be a big V8 under the hood. You can make it with a small little 4-cylinder turbo, and it would be great. So this is particularly true when a hybrid car inherits the downsides of electrification, such as added weight and the loss of visceral engagement found in traditional gas-powered cars, without gaining the benefits like extreme levels of power or performance. So you're going to have to wait and see here what Honda is going to do with this design. If it's just going to be a beautiful shell that drives like a boring crossover SUV, or if it's actually going to feel like a sports car when you're driving this thing. So let's jump into Photoshop here and have a look at this design, because there's a couple of things I want to talk about here. First of all, Honda these days, they started to bring in this very simplistic design language. And by the way, it is extremely hard to find a clear 3/4 rear view of this new Prelude. I don't understand why. Is Honda hiding something here? Because if you look at every single press photo of this new car, it's very, very hard to find a clear 3/4 rear view. I challenge you to go and Google or try to find a clear 3/4 rear view of this car. You're not going to find it, because I've been looking for it for days. So looking at this design here, super simple, clean styling. I love the hood design. I love this graphics that we have with the light bar in the front end looking very clean. Sort of Toyota styling with this wing like we have right here. Just reviewed the new Toyota Camry, fully loaded XSC. Beautiful design, even though it does have a CVT gearbox. But I really enjoyed driving that for a week. You can go check out that review on the Sketch Monkey channel. But that has similar styling to what we have here with this wing in the front end. And then we have the daytime run lights cutting into the front. In this case, I think it looks really, really good. Very chiseled, crisp design from Honda. And I also love that, look at this, we have dynamic feeling for the daytime run lights. It's not just one single LED bar like this with the same thickness. We have different thickness in this area, and then goes into a little bit of a thicker piece and an upswing in curvature, creating this movement that I want to see in daytime run lights like this, because it creates an identity at night. So when you see this, basically what you're going to see, let's see here in the front end, you're going to see something like this, LED here, and then an LED that goes something like this up in the other end, and you're going to have a single LED up here. So this is going to be the very super ugly representation of what the LEDs are going to look like at night. But you get the point. It gives it an identity here, and that is what we're looking for when it comes to LEDs in the front. And look at the bumper here. Super simplistic. No weird intakes right here. No fake intakes or something like that in the side. Everything is super clean, and I love that about the Honda's new design language. You can see that this line has a connection to what's going on in the lower section of the side here, the front end, because we do have sort of a very subtle line right there. We have an LED bar in the front end here. I'm not sure what this symbolizes, what that is connected to, if it's some safety feature or something like that, but it looks pretty cool to have that down there. And we also have this beautiful lower section being blacked out. It looks very nice in contrast with the white design. You can see how this line also has a connection to what's going on in the bodywork of the car. So beautiful front end by Honda here. It looks very, very clean. Now looking at the side view, and this is what I said earlier, it's sort of, the proportions here look almost like a mid-engine car, because you can see how the greenhouse sit very far forward. It's almost like this cab forward design, meaning that where you're gonna sit, you have your head right here, and look at where you're positioned. You're almost positioned right 50%, smack in the middle of the overall length of this car. So what I would want to do here to make this feel a little bit more sporty and also like a proper two-door coupe is to just move back this entire let's see if we can have some fun here. So if we take this greenhouse right here, it's gonna be a very rough redesign. Let's add some more surface area here so we can actually move this backwards. Copy this, and if we just slide it back a little bit, look at that. It's starting to look a little bit cooler now. And then shrink this area down, maybe make it a little lower like this. Now it's starting to look like a proper two-door sports coupe to me. Instead, we have the front end of this car sitting very far forward, which is not a bad thing at all. It still looks very, very good and very cool, but I would like to have the greenhouse sit a little bit further back than this. We have beautiful line flow here. This line coming up from underneath the headlights, creating a nice chamfer underneath the headlights, and then continues through the front axle into the rear end, and a separated line here, a little bit of muscle going over the rear axle. And then we have this, another connection in the front end, and this Nissan Z line in the lower section, meaning that it goes from low down here upwards into the front axle and then into the bumper. Something that we're starting to see more of that line. I can't remember, there was another car I just made a video on that had a similar line to this. There wasn't a Nissan either, but that's a line that seems to be a trend right now. And we also have these fins or wings in the rear end. You can see that they're hollowed out, so we have two different elements back here, one here and another one on the other side. Of course, the wheel design looked great, even though yes, they are blacked out still. I think Honda is probably going to jump on the train to stop making every single new car wheel, specifically sporty cars, black when it comes to the wheel design, because we can't appreciate the beautiful design. These are beautiful looking wheels, but I can't see the design of these wheels because it's all blacked out. And when this is rolling down the highway, you're just going to see a black hole here. You're not going to see, you're probably going to see the brake disc behind this, which is very important for sports cars as well, but you're not really going to see the spoke design. Now looking at the 3/4 rear view, down here. Again, beautiful rear end with a light bar, which is sort of the trend right now. Still very trendy to have a light bar back here, but look at how clean everything is. Prelude with the old font from the 90s, still intact here. Big chamfer going down here into a secondary smaller chamfer that is housing the diffuser down here at the lower section. I love how the diffuser sticks up very high up here and removes some of this volume in the lower section, in addition to this little splitter down here, or maybe this is the proper diffuser at the very low bottom. We don't have any exhaust pipes visible, which is, again, I think that's maybe something that I would like to see, but this not being a supercar, it's just a sports car, and it also has a pretty, I guess you could call it a pretty weak powertrain with this hybrid setup. Exhaust pipes doesn't make sense here, but it would be cool to see some exhaust pipes down here, dual pipes of course on each side. I think that would add to the sportiness of this design. And here you can still see this Z line that goes in the lower section, dipping down right before it meets the rear axle. Now looking at the juicy LED that we have here, I love that we have Honda spelled out underneath, and it doesn't have as much of a dynamic feel like we have in the front end, because you can see we have the same thickness across the entire light bar in the rear end. I would maybe want to see it dip down something like this and have a little bit of a different thickness right here, so we can fill this in, something like that would be pretty cool to see, to just give it some movement in this big graphic key feature in the rear end, that is the tail lights. Now overall, as I said, I'm gonna have to wait and see if this is actually going to be a sporty driving experience with this hybrid powertrain that we have. As I said before, I wish they would just ditch, specifically for this model. I don't care about the Civics or the HRVs or CRVs, everyday cars. But when you bring back a Prelude, you want it to be a proper sports car. And that means to me, just remove the hybrid powertrain altogether. First of all, it's going to save weight. It's also going to be a much more fun driving experience, I do believe. Maybe it's going to, decrease the fuel economy a little bit, but that's not what this car is about. So it doesn't make sense to put those, generic, point A to point B vehicle drivetrains into a Prelude. I think this could be something special. And also, this is a car that we 100% want to have with a manual transmission.